Chapter 1. The Beginning of Betrayal. I was sitting at my desk scrolling through emails when I saw it, an envelope marked with my family's crest. At first, I didn't think much of it. It could have been another business update or one of my mother's periodic check-ins about the company. But when I opened it, my heart stopped. The letter read, "We regret to inform you that you have been removed from the inheritance list." I stared at the words, my mind blank, unable to comprehend. My hands trembled, and I read it again, hoping it was just a mistake. But it wasn't. They had cut me out, erased me from the family's legacy as if I had never existed. How could they do this? After everything I had done, sacrificing time, relationships, and peace of mind to make the family proud, this was how they repaid me? The worst part wasn't the exclusion. It was how long I had convinced myself it was an accident. I had spent years thinking I belonged, sitting at their table, showing up for every occasion, believing that I had earned my place, only to find out I never had a seat to begin with. I had worked for their approval, only to discover I was never truly part of their world. I stood up, pacing the office, my thoughts racing. How could they do this to me? After all I had given, after all the years of working day and night, they just tossed me aside. I thought I was part of something bigger, part of the family's legacy, but now it was clear I was nothing to them. I grabbed my phone and dialed my mother's number. It rang several times before she picked up. "Hello, darling," she said, her voice as cool and composed as always. "How are you?" I could barely keep my voice steady. "What is this, Mom? Why am I being cut out of the will?" There was a long silence on the other end. Then she sighed, the sound filled with something I couldn't place. "Oh, Juliana," she said, her voice soft but distant. "We've talked about this before. You've been so busy with your company. You haven't been involved with the family lately. You've neglected your responsibilities." My stomach twisted. Neglected my responsibilities? I've been working day and night to build something of my own. I've done everything for this family. What do you mean, neglected? "You've chosen your work over family," she said, her voice turning cold. "Max has been more involved with the business. He's shown loyalty, unlike you." Max, my brother, the one who always got everything handed to him. I felt a surge of anger at the mention of his name. He had always been the golden child, the one who followed in my father's footsteps, the one who never had to fight for anything. But now he would be the one to take everything. I held back the words in my throat. "So that's it? I've been excluded because I've worked too hard for my own life?" "I didn't say that," she replied, but her voice was tight. "But it's the truth. You've been focused on your agency, on your dreams. My father and I need someone who will carry on the family legacy." I wanted to scream, but I let out a shaky breath. "And what does Max have to do with this?" "Max has always understood the importance of family. He's been helping with the estate, managing the business. You've been distracted." I couldn't believe it. I was being told that I was too distracted by my own success. It wasn't just the inheritance that I was being shut out of. It was everything. It was my place in the family, my value, my entire existence. And for what? Because I chose to build something from nothing? Because I chose to pursue my own dreams?
Chapter 2. The Awakening and Preparing for Revenge. I wasn't going to sit around and let this slide. This was not just about inheritance. It was about everything. I had spent my life trying to prove myself, trying to earn a place at their table, and now I was being pushed out like I didn't matter. I had to take control. It was time to fight back. I immediately reached out to Amanda Lee. a lawyer I had worked with before. She was sharp, determined, and exactly who I needed by my side. When she answered, I didn't waste any time. "Amanda, I need your help," I said, my voice steady but filled with urgency. "My family has cut me out of the inheritance, and I think there's more going on. I need you to dig into their financials. All of it. I want everything they've hidden." Her response was immediate. "I'm on it. I'll start pulling up the records, and we'll expose everything." The next few days were a whirlwind. I barely slept, barely ate, consumed by the need to get answers. Every document I reviewed, every phone call I made, it all pointed to the same thing. My family had been siphoning off assets for years, creating fake companies and diverting money into hidden accounts. It wasn't just the inheritance. They had been robbing me blind for a long time. Amanda and I stayed in constant contact, working tirelessly. The evidence was mounting, and with each new piece, the anger I felt turned into something else, something more powerful. I was no longer the victim. I was ready to take control and make them regret ever crossing me. Then Amanda called with some news. "Juliana, I've found something. It's worse than we thought. Chad, your ex-husband, has been involved in some of these transactions. He's been helping Max cover up these deals." My heart sank. I had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed made my blood run cold. Chad, the one person I thought I could trust, was in on it. He wasn't just a bystander. He was part of the scheme. I couldn't breathe. I had spent so many years thinking I had a partner, someone who understood me, someone who would stand by me. But now it was clear. He had been working with Max all along. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "He's in it for himself," Amanda said, her voice steady. "And now we have everything we need to take them down." I felt a surge of adrenaline. "We're going after all of them. Max, Chad, the whole damn lot. We'll expose them and we'll make them pay for what they've done." Amanda and I worked non-stop, gathering evidence, piecing together every hidden transaction, every email, every deal that had been made in the shadows. I wasn't going to just fight for what was rightfully mine. I was going to make sure they never did this to anyone again. Every day I got closer to the truth. Every day I felt myself becoming stronger. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my place in the world, about showing them that I wouldn't be erased. Chapter 3. The Revenge Plan Begins. I had everything in place. My plan wasn't going to be one of loud confrontations or angry outbursts. No, I was going to fight this battle with precision and finesse. There was too much at stake, too much to lose if I didn't approach this strategically. This wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about making sure my family and everyone involved in this paid for what they'd done. I sat at my desk in my apartment overlooking the city. The skyline seemed almost indifferent to the storm brewing inside me. I'd already started the wheels in motion. The first step was getting Amanda Lee, my trusted lawyer, back on my side. We had been close during college, and though we had drifted apart, I knew she was the right person for this job. She wasn't just a good lawyer. She was relentless, and that's exactly what I needed right now. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm but focused. "Juliana, what's going on? I figured you'd be calling soon." "Yeah, well," I paused, feeling the familiar anxiety rise in my chest. "It's time to go after them. I need you to start gathering everything, every document, every email, every transaction. We're going to expose everything they've done." "Do you have a list of what we need?" she asked, already sounding like she was getting into the zone. "I do," I said, feeling the weight of my next words. "I'm going to need full access to their financial records, real estate transactions, any offshore accounts, loans, debts, everything. We need to follow the money. Max and my mother have been hiding it for years. But there's something else. I hesitated, not sure how to voice the next part, but I had to. What is it? She asked, sensing my pause. Chad. I thought he was on my side, but I'm starting to think he's been in on this the whole time. He's been helping Max with the financial dealings. I need to know what he's been doing. Amanda was silent for a moment. I could almost hear her mind working. I'll get to work on it, she finally said. I'll start pulling up whatever I can find. We'll get to the bottom of this, I promise you. Thanks, Amanda. I don't know what I'd do without you. Don't worry about that. Let's get this done. The next few days were a whirlwind. I spent my time locked away in my apartment, poring over documents I had collected from my company and the business side of things. I had always been good with numbers, but this time I was looking for something deeper, patterns, connections, anything that would give me the upper hand. It wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It was about control, about taking back what I had worked for, and about teaching my family a lesson they wouldn't forget. I stayed in constant contact with Amanda, and the pieces started to fall into place. I found emails from Max discussing business deals that seemed too good to be true, real estate transactions that didn't make sense, offshore accounts that linked to nothing but empty shell companies. There was something off about the way the money flowed, and the more I dug, the clearer it became that they had been siphoning off the family's wealth for years. One night, Amanda called me with news. I've got something, she said, her voice full of anticipation. I've been looking into Chad, and it's worse than we thought. He's been helping Max hide assets. Not just that, there are records of him signing off on transactions that you never knew about. My heart sank. I had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed still hit hard. So he's been in on it. All along, I said quietly, the anger rising in my chest. Looks like it, Amanda replied. I'm pulling up more on this, but it's clear he's been playing both sides. He's been helping Max keep you out of the picture while lining his own pockets. I leaned back in my chair, trying to steady my breath. I had trusted Chad. He had always been my partner, my confidant. To know he had been part of this, helping my own family undermine me, it was too much. Why? I asked, almost to myself. Why would he do this? He's looking out for himself, and he's been doing it for a long time. But we have something now. We have leverage. We need to bring it to light. I could feel the rage simmering beneath the surface, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about revenge through anger. This was about justice, about getting the truth out there. I spent the next few days compiling everything I could, the emails, the transactions, the offshore accounts. Everything was connected, like pieces of a puzzle, each one revealing a little more. Max had been working with shady business partners, and Chad had been his accomplice. My mother, for all her talk about loyalty and family, had known and done nothing. It was all there, in black and white. But I needed more. I needed to make sure they wouldn't get away with it. I contacted a forensic accountant, someone I had worked with before on smaller business matters. His name was Michael Grant, and he was as sharp as they come. He agreed to take on the case, and we set up a meeting at my office the following week. When Michael arrived, he immediately started going through the records. He didn't say much at first, just nodded as he reviewed the papers. I watched him work, trying to keep my nerves in check. After an hour, he looked up at me. He said, "You're right. There's a lot here, and a lot of it isn't legal. If we dig deeper, we'll find everything you need to take them down." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "We'll do it. I'm not letting them get away with this." Michael's eyes met mine. He said, "This is going to take time, Juliana, but we can make it happen." Time. It was the one thing I didn't have much of, but for now, I had to trust the process. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and hours spent reviewing documents. Each piece of evidence brought me closer to exposing my family's betrayal, and each day made me feel a little stronger. But I knew it wasn't enough yet. I had to hit them where it hurt them most, their pride, their sense of entitlement. One evening, as I was reviewing some of the final pieces of evidence, a thought hit me. What if my family wasn't just after money? What if this had always been about control, about making sure I never became more than they wanted me to be? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that Max had always seen me as a threat. My mother had always played the long game. And Chad? Well, he had always been a wild card, but now I knew he was playing both sides for his own gain. The pieces were finally in place. I wasn't going to back down now. They were going to pay for what they did, and I would be the one to make sure it happened. I was ready to take them on. But first, I needed to make sure I had everything I needed. There was no turning back now.
Chapter 4: The Final Confrontation. The courtroom was colder than I expected, the air thick with tension as I took my seat. My family sat across from me, each of them maintaining a perfect facade of calm. Max sat with his usual air of superiority, his lawyer by his side, and my mother, Barbara, looked as if nothing in the world could shake her composure. But I knew everything they had tried to hide, and today I was going to expose it all. The judge called the court to order, his voice breaking the heavy silence. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced down at the stack of evidence in front of me. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the moment where everything they had done would be laid bare. I couldn't help but feel a surge of power, a sense of triumph rising inside me as I prepared to present the truth. The first pieces of evidence were simple: financial records showing the transactions that had been manipulated, the offshore accounts that had been hidden from me, and the contracts where my name had been removed without my knowledge. My lawyer, Amanda, presented each one with precision, detailing how my family had systematically siphoned off assets, transferring money to fake companies, and hiding millions of dollars in secret accounts. The documents were irrefutable, and for the first time, I saw a crack in my mother's calm exterior. Max, however, wasn't as easily rattled. He leaned forward, his face a mask of feigned concern. "This is a misunderstanding," he said, his voice smooth but tight with the pressure of our confrontation. "Juliana, you know we've always done things this way. You were too busy with your own company to see what was happening here." I felt the anger bubbling up inside me, but kept it in check. I wasn't here for a shouting match. I was here to win, to prove that everything they had done was wrong and that they had no right to treat me like this. "You're right, Max," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I was too busy building my own life, my own business. But what you don't understand is that I didn't just build that for myself, I built that for the family. I always thought the legacy of this company would mean something. But you've turned it into a game of manipulation and deceit." Max's jaw clenched, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, trying to project confidence, but I could see the subtle tension in his posture. It was the first sign that he was starting to feel the weight of what was happening. Barbara, on the other hand, was a stone wall. She hadn't said a word since the trial began, but I could feel her gaze on me, cold and distant. My mother, the woman who had always been so sure of her place in this world, now seemed fragile in the face of the truth. The facade she had built around herself was crumbling piece by piece. "Your Honor," Anda said, her voice steady and professional, "we have additional evidence that will show the full extent of the fraud and manipulation by the Hayes family. This isn't just about missing out on an inheritance. This is about an organized effort to defraud an individual out of what was rightfully hers." The judge nodded, signaling for us to continue. I had to take a deep breath before presenting the next piece of evidence. This was the moment I had been preparing for, the twist that would change everything. It wasn't just Max and Barbara involved in this scheme. The records we had uncovered pointed to someone else, someone who had been operating in the shadows, pulling strings behind the scenes. I slid a folder across the table to the judge. Inside were emails from Simon Clark, a longtime business partner of my family, detailing secret meetings and covert transactions. He had been involved in every major deal, every shady financial transaction that had been hidden from me. The evidence was clear, and it was damning. "Your Honor," I began, trying to keep my voice calm as I looked directly at my family. "This is where everything changes. Simon Clark, a man you've trusted for years, has been behind these financial dealings. He's been working with Max to hide assets and manipulate the family business to his own advantage. Max's face paled for a brief second, and I could see the panic flicker in his eyes before he quickly regained his composure. "This is absurd," he snapped. "You're just making accusations without evidence." I knew the truth was already out there. The judge was reading through the evidence, his brow furrowed in concentration. I could feel the room shift as the reality of what I was saying sank in. Simon had been the mastermind behind it all. Max had been a willing accomplice. And my mother had either turned a blind eye or been complicit herself. The judge looked up from the documents, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Hayes," he said, addressing Max, "you are implicated in serious financial crimes. How do you explain this?" Max's cool exterior cracked, and I could see his carefully constructed persona falter. He stood up, but instead of responding, he turned to his lawyer, whispering something urgently. It was clear that he didn't have an answer. There was no way to justify what had been uncovered. I almost felt sorry for him, but then I remembered everything he had done. He had tried to steal everything from me. He had tried to strip away my worth, my family, my legacy. He deserved no sympathy. Barbara finally spoke, her voice low and measured. "Juliana," she said, her eyes cold as she looked at me, "you don't understand. This isn't about you. This is about preserving what's left of the family legacy." The words hit me like a slap. "What's left of the family legacy?" I repeated. "You've ruined it. You've sold it out for money, for power, and now you want to justify it like it's all just business? There's no family left, Mom. There's just greed." She said nothing. Her silence was enough to confirm everything I'd already known. My mother had been complicit in this betrayal. The woman I had once looked up to, the woman who had taught me everything about business, had been the one to tear the family apart. The courtroom was silent, the tension almost palpable. I knew I had won. The evidence was too strong and my family was too exposed. I had fought for everything I had worked for, and now I was going to get it back. But as the judge called for a short recess, I felt a pang of sadness deep inside me. It wasn't the victory I had hoped for. Yes, I had exposed the truth, and yes, I was about to reclaim what was mine, but in doing so, I had lost my family. There was no going back from this, and as much as I hated to admit it, I'm not sure I ever wanted to.
Chapter 5. Starting Over. I left the courthouse with the weight of everything finally lifted off my shoulders. The fight was over, and I had won. My family's secrets were exposed. The money that was rightfully mine had been returned, and the future was mine to shape. But as I walked away, there was no joy in my heart, just a sense of numb finality. I had fought for this victory, but the cost was far greater than I had ever imagined. Now, with the dust settling and my path forward clear, I had to make a decision. What now? I wasn't going back to the way things were before. I couldn't. I had spent too many years trying to live up to my family's expectations, trying to please people who would never see me for who I truly was. It was time to build something for myself, without their shadow hanging over me. I started with my company. My agency had been growing steadily, but with everything that had happened, it was time to take it to the next level. I threw myself into my work, pouring my energy into new projects and expanding into new markets. I had the freedom now to create something that wasn't dictated by anyone but me. It felt incredible, like I was finally in control of my own destiny. The creative projects I had always dreamed of were now becoming a reality, and I felt a sense of accomplishment that I had never felt before. But success wasn't just about business. It was about giving back. I remembered all the women I had met over the years who were facing the same kind of battles I had. Women who were silenced, dismissed, or pushed aside by the people around them. I became a mentor to many of them, offering advice and guidance, helping them navigate the world I had once been so naive to. I wanted to show them that they didn't have to stay silent, that they had the right to fight for what they deserved. One day, I met with a young woman named Sophie. She had recently launched her own startup but was facing resistance from her investors,
who were questioning her ability to lead the company. I saw so much of myself in her, the same fire, the same determination, but also the same doubts. We met at a small cafe in the city, and as she told me her story, I could feel her fear, her uncertainty. She was holding back, afraid of stepping on toes and losing everything. "I don't know if I can do this," Sophie admitted, looking down at her hands. "They keep telling me I'm too ambitious, too stubborn. I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep fighting." I smiled, leaning forward across the table. "You don't need to be strong enough to fight everyone. You just need to be strong enough to fight for what you believe in. That's where the real power is." It wasn't much, but I could see the relief in her eyes. I had been there once. I had been scared, uncertain, and unsure of myself. But now I knew that my strength wasn't about the victories I had won. It was about the journey, the lessons I had learned, and the strength to never give up. As I mentored more women like Sophie, I found myself growing stronger too. The pain of the past, the betrayal, the loss, began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose. I had built my life from the ground up, and now I was using my experience to help others do the same. Months passed and my company flourished. I felt the warmth of my success, but something was missing. I hadn't seen my family since the trial, and the emptiness I had been running from began to catch up with me. I tried to push the thoughts away, focusing instead on my work, on the women I was helping, but the question lingered. What would it take for me to move forward? Truly move forward? Then, out of the blue, I received a call from my mother. It had been months since I had last spoken to her. The words we exchanged in the courtroom were still fresh in my mind, but there was a part of me that still couldn't let go. She had been a part of my life for so long, and as much as I hated to admit it, a small part of me still hoped for reconciliation. "Juliana," her voice came through the phone, soft and tentative. "I'm sorry." I didn't know how to respond at first. The words she was saying felt like an echo, something I had wanted to hear for so long but had never expected to hear. "I've made mistakes, Juliana," she continued, her voice cracking. "I should have never let things go this far. I've been selfish, Juliana. I was trying to protect what I thought was right, but in doing so, I hurt you. I'm so sorry." I closed my eyes listening to her words. There was a part of me that wanted to run back to her, to forgive her and pretend everything was fine. But I couldn't, not anymore. "I appreciate your apology, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "But I can't just forget everything that's happened. I can't go back." There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her trying to hold back tears. "I understand," she whispered. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just needed to say it. I don't know what else to do." I felt a pang in my chest, but I knew it was the right decision. I wasn't the same person I had been when I walked into that courtroom. I had fought for myself, for what I believed in, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my mother, take that away from me. "I've learned a lot these past months, Mom," I said, my voice stronger now. "And I've learned that I don't need anyone's approval to live my life. I'm not the daughter you wanted, and that's okay. I'm not going to fight for a place in a family that doesn't accept me as I am." Her voice trembled as she spoke again, but this time I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. "I wish I had known how to love you the right way," she said, her words filled with regret. "I know," I replied softly, "but I'm okay now. I've found my way." I hung up the phone with a sense of finality. The relationship I had with my mother would never be the same, and I didn't know if it ever would be. But for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I had learned to stop needing approval from anyone. I had built my life on my own terms, and I was finally free. The world was wide open now. There were still battles to be fought, but I was no longer fighting for a place in my family's legacy. I was fighting for my own future, one where I had full control. As I stood in front of the window, looking out over the city, I knew that this was just the beginning. There would always be challenges, but I was ready for whatever came next. Because I had learned something crucial. Family wasn't about who you were born to, it was about who you chose to surround yourself with. And the life I was building was mine. And that was enough.